Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Someone else is also streaming on Jacob's channel. I don't know who it is. I haven't seen something about wood grain. I don't know, but this is the time I always do Bible study. So I'm still gonna do Bible study. So if you guys want to join me in 1 Samuel chapter 7, come along. We'll start in 5 minutes. Hello, all. This I don't call him. I think that when I start streaming, some sort of sound occurs, and he's just like, I must, because he he will be in the other room, and if I start streaming, he's just like, it's my one chance.
Perfect. Amazing. You should make a little cat cam, like what Jacob used to have his little happy cam.
Right. Yeah, he has a space on my desk, but yeah. Cassandra, thank you so much for coming to the Gilgamesh conversation yesterday.
It was really good. I loved it.
I'm really happy. I I rewatch everything I do, and every now and then I get too excited. And I was worried I was too excited for that conversation
No,
because
it was good.
I first read that book like 20 years ago, and I'm trying like to be able to have a conversation with other people about it was just very exciting.
Yeah. It's nice. It's funny. Before you announced that, my husband told me, "Oh, you should join like one of the book clubs or something around here because it's like little women's book clubs." But
Oh,
I've looked at some online, at least. Like, I think there's a book club app or something where you can put like your things on there and have people like locally or online join.
hmm.
But they're usually not really reading books that I'm interested in reading.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to have a space to talk about.
Is that to ask you a personal question? There's a lot of books, from what I understand, the majority of books are sold to women. And the kind of books that are sold to women, well, you just see what is popular, right?
Hmm.
You look at that, it's a lot of romance, it's a lot of girl bossing. Um, is that is that am I tapping into why you don't like those things
I
or
mean, I guess growing up, I actually really liked a lot like old books. Like in our English
yeah,
classes, I enjoyed reading The Scarlet Letter. I kind of liked it sounded. I thought it sounded cool. I
right?
didn't always connect as much with the more modern books because we read One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest too,
Hmm.
and that one maybe it's also too because like the way the narrator was like not in his right mind too. Maybe the way it was framed, it was hard for me to get.
Hmm.
But I didn't like that one as much. I only recently started reading more modern books, and then yeah, the women books, the way they're marketing them now, maybe it's like the online social media book talk kind of influence. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of like romantasy, and a lot of it is like there's a much more emphasis on smut. Even like the book covers will be kind of cutesy looking, like it almost looks like a little YA novel or something. And then you
Right.
read it, and out of nowhere, there's like this like smut scene of the characters, like oh they finally have sex. It's like page chapter 3 or something like that. And so that aspect I kind of don't like. And then some books I just don't think the premise is interesting. I guess I don't know if it's yeah I don't know. I guess the books that are marketed widely are probably more like that. Like yeah.
Right. And so that would be what book clubs would generally be, I assume.
Some of them. I know there's this there's like some that are more nonfiction, which I'm not really into reading nonfiction either. But I've
Okay.
seen some that are more nonfiction emphasis or something.
Just because I have it next to me, I can't remember who I've told to purchase this, but I am dedicated. I'm one of the people dedicated to the that this book is dedicated to. It is a because I helped edit it and did some story changes. So it is a novel that my friend Mike wrote. I think it's wonderful. I don't know. Other people might have differing opinions. It's very difficult to do a book club too because you need to make sure everyone has enough time. Like when my wife reads a book, it will be nothing at all and then all done in a week and a half. She'll read like 2 chapters, it'll sit there for like 3 months, and then she'll pick it up again and it'll be done in a week.
Yeah, with Gilgamesh, I read most of it within a couple days, and then I waited like a week and a half to finish it until like maybe a day or two before the thing. I
Yeah.
don't know, but yeah, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. Well, I've been watching a lot more movies from like the 90s. And one of my favorite movies is The Fly, which is from 85, 86. And that movie is 90 minutes long. And I was Netflix actually, because my wife and I watched a bunch of 90-minute 90s movies. Netflix actually started recommending it, where it's like, these movies are only 90 minutes long. I was just like, remember when we could do that? We could watch just 90 minutes and you could go on with your day. Like you didn't have to sit down for hours upon hours. You don't need a book that's like the Bible. It could just be the Epic of Gilgamesh, like,
Yeah.
Read this in 2 hours and then get on your way.
Yeah. Marketing, I think, messed with a lot of the way movies and books are now.
Right. Well, let's get into the text. We're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 7. Michael tells us that he will be there soon. Adam says that my father kept buying me books he didn't read, which participated in ushering my puberty. That's one of the things I heard about, like the James Bond books, because people would buy them being like, oh yeah, I like those movies, and not realize that there's a lot of sex in those books. Yeah, Adam made a bunch of comments on the video. It's posted on Jacob's channel. I got to read it. Adam is a thoughtful dude. Dude? Did I just assume your gender, Adam?
Adam Dillinger.
I think you're allowed to call everyone a dude. Like, you wouldn't be insulted if I called if you came on and I said, "How you doing, my dude?" You'd feel fine about that. Okay. Like, everyone feels fine about guys.
Yeah. Neutral.
Yeah. Male, in every language, male is neutral. Male means male or female. Female only means females. Right?
That's how Spanish works.
Yeah. And even in the Bible, every single time it says brothers in the letters of Paul, it could mean brothers and sisters. It's just the word for brothers means brothers and sisters, but sisters only mean sisters.
I was going to say, yeah, what's the female version of brethren?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know the answer to that.
Brethren, yeah.
But it works the same in Hebrew, because in Hebrew you'll say, like, the Israelite will sometimes appear as sons of Israel. Sons of Israel means children of. So they don't even always translate it. Right. Okay. Here's the Bible. This old book. The Ark of the Covenant was brought back in the beginning right here. So, Cassandra, is that big enough for you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Give us a read.
Okay. And Samuel said to all the house of Israel, if you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you, and direct your heart to the Lord and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. So the people of Israel put away the Baals and the Ashtaroth, and they served the Lord only.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so one of the things to notice is that Baal means Lord or husband. In fact, in Jewish marriage rituals to this day, there's a special statement which is said, and when describing the man as the husband, it refers to him as Baal, as sometimes people pronounce it, but in Hebrew you'd pronounce it Baal. So put away the Baals, plural, because you could have different regional gods. You could describe all of the gods in a pantheon as Baal, even though there also becomes an individual god called Baal, which we use this all the time because it's a term like God. Sometimes people refer to God as the one only God, but you can also say gods, right? And refers to multiple different entities who are lower than what we mean when we say God.
Yeah. That's how it is in other mythologies. They're usually, I think they might have different names for lower deities, but when I read it in English, that's how they always translate it. Like this guy is a low deity. He's not a powerful or main one.
Well, and people have even said that you can translate God as spirit being depending on when it comes up. Because when the ghost of Samuel gets called up in the Witch of Endor, he's a god. It says, I see a god coming up. It's the same word to describe God.
Yeah, I saw a thing online where people were arguing about what good translations of the Bible there are because they didn't like the way that line was translated when it says gods or God or looks like a god.
Yeah.
They felt very trustful of certain, I guess, ways of saying it.
Yeah, Adam, I think you are completely right. Where he says, come on, show. Says it seems they put away their differences. Baals and Ashtaroth could stand for being partisan of a dual side. Yeah, so this idea that they have multiple allegiances, even this idea that he's calling them to repentance. So the Ark of the Covenant being taken away is showcasing that they were never real worshipers. And so this is calling them to a higher standard. Which means that these people who were willing to come to listen to the prophet were also people who had, like, they listened to the prophet of Adonai, but at home they had, they had a couple of different statues.
That reminds me, I remember I had a world religions study class, where they talked about, I guess was it in Russia or maybe a smaller state in Russia, where the governor there talked about that he had erased religion. They're completely atheist. But then after he died, after the communism, I guess, went away or something, everybody took out like their religious like stuff. They took out the crucifixes and everything.
That were
so
like
they had
hidden.
never
Yeah,
they had never really, they got rid of it because like the government made them and stuff like that, but they had never really parted with it. They still had it, and then it all came back out after that whole part of history was over.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, is like all these people who have become followers of the one true God, when they're in the land, they're like, how much for that statue? I'll have it in the back room just in case. Just in case.
Yeah. I guess it's part of like culturally entrenched ideas and ways of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, do you want to read the next section?
Mm-hmm. Then Samuel said, "Gather all Israel at Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord for you." So they gathered at Mizpah and drew water and poured it out before the Lord and fasted on that day and said there, "We have sinned against the Lord." And Samuel judged the people of Israel at Mizpah. Now when the Philistines heard that the people of Israel had gathered at Mizpah, the lords of the Philistines went up against Israel. And when the people of Israel heard of it, they were afraid of the Philistines. And the people of Israel said to Samuel, "Do not cease to cry out to the Lord our God for us, that he may save us from the hand of the Philistines." So Samuel took a nursing lamb and offered it as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. And Samuel cried out to the Lord for Israel, and the Lord answered him.
Perfect. Let's pause right there. First off, that is what we call a Freudian slip. You saying Philippines. the Filipinos. They're fighting the Filipinos. So they're meeting at this place where specifically they are going to be blessed. And remember, all this story about how the Ark of the Covenant was taken, we haven't really gotten a story since then, right? So the last time they went against these people, they lost horribly, right? And so they're praying to God, they're asking for God to be on their side, but what they are used to is them losing. And last time it seemed like God didn't show up like he promised. Now, he never promised. They were trying to force his hand, remember. But this is an interesting image. Let's just finish up this one little section, because I had to cut you off.
As Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to attack Israel. But the Lord thundered with a mighty sound that day against the Philistines and threw them into confusion, and they were defeated before Israel. And the men of Israel went out from Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and struck them as far as below Beth-kar.
That's great. That's great. So they win. Great. They are moving away from this period of utter failure to something a little more successful. The other thing that I think is interesting is that Samuel here, I'm going to mute Michael while I hear his car. The other thing that's very interesting is that how is Samuel referred to within this passage? He is referred to as a judge. So it's really connecting Samuel with these characters that were judges. The period of the judges were coming out of there. And in the next chapter, the people are going to request a king. So you can see him as this character transitioning from kingship, from judges to kingship.
What would the difference between a judge and a king be?
I don't know. Someone asked me this before, and I really wish I knew. And I really wish I had a couple of Jews around who would tell me.
Yeah, I was thinking, because on one of the talks, I think it was Hezi, he was saying something like when a king is considered valid, is like he's recognized by the people and by God.
Right.
And I was thinking, well, that's what happens with Samuel early on, because everybody regards him as like a true prophet.
Right,
and
right.
Prophecies come true and stuff, and he has like a certain amount of authority over the people. So, yeah, I was curious about what the real difference would be.
There's no hereditary transfer of power for judges, not implicitly anyway.
Oh, that's a good point.
It could happen. But
is that how all the kings operated though? Because I know there's like some groups, it seems like they would choose them rather than inherit it. Or maybe kings
that's definitely a thing. I mean, like in the Roman Empire, there might be people who were close relatives, or maybe even just like trust. Like in the Roman Empire, the Caesar would adopt whoever the next Caesar was going to be. So, which is kind of interesting, just when you get to the whole like Jesus times, and the whole issue of adoption. But yeah.
This is particularly interesting because I think that's part of the controversy that occurs when David marries Saul's daughter. Because if you marry a princess, what are you? Right? Sometimes that's what people would do to show they had legitimacy to rule. So Saul does this so that he can keep David close, but as he does that, he also is giving David legitimacy to take over. It's an interesting little thing. While I still remember, in the mid-2000s, there was a show called Kings on NBC. You can still watch it, I think, for free on the NBC website. And I liked it, and I watched it, and no one else did. So, what's the Marvel character with the metal arm? The Winter Soldier.
Oh.
The Winter Soldier. That guy is in it. He plays Jonathan.
Oh, okay. Sebastian Stan.
Yeah. Jonathan is gay in this. I'm not going to pretend he's not. It's not 100% perfect or great. I'm fine that they made that decision. Whatever, guys. Still pretty good. You give me a better version and I'll like that one more. Michael, you seem like you might be the only other person who may have seen that show. Did you ever watch NBC's Kings?
No, I had no idea that existed. I mean, I would give it a try. But, it's interesting. I do keep saying that whenever people complain about Bible media or Christian media, I always just say, if you don't like it, make a better one. But they want to say, like, no. We're just going to go back to hymns because those are something we have figured out how to do well. So
Did you guys ever watch Blue-Eyed Samurai? I was talking about this the other day. Did you guys watch Blue-Eyed Samurai?
no.
So the same person who made Blue-Eyed Samurai made Kings. They've made some, I think they might even be involved in Logan, like the MCU story.
Mm.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that again. But either way, it's legit. It's an actual show. It has well-written bits, whether or not they're biblically accurate. Yes, Goliath is a tank. Like literally the vehicle a tank, but still.
Yeah, it's hard to find good, well-written, acted Christian media.
I think prophet is the spiritual version of a king, such as a male role. Judge seems much more receptive, like a female having many men proposing. Well, we're going to get there eventually, where the king is supposed to listen to other people. That's one of the ways Absalom tries to usurp his father. Let's continue, but Michael, are you driving? Can you read?
No, I'm driving.
Okay. But then Cassandra's eating, so what do we do?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
All right. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen, and called its name Ebenezer, for he said, "Till now the Lord has helped us." So the Philistines were subdued and did not again enter the territory of Israel. And the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. The cities that the Philistines had taken from Israel were restored to Israel, from Ekron to Gath, and Israel delivered their territory from the hand of the Philistines. There was peace also between Israel and the Amorites.
Okay, that's great. That's great. The hand of the Lord was against the Philistines. Very, very good. This is where Ebenezer comes from. Evan is stone in Hebrew. So for now, the Lord has helped us. So it's a stone of help, is what Ebenezer means in Hebrew. So that's how they name the place. This chapter is a turning point chapter. I think there's supposed to be natural breaks in the text, and this is one of the breaks. You have this first section, and then you have this. When you come across something that is a summary of everything that has happened or everything that will happen, that's how you know you're in one of these literary, where the literary style is indicating this. So that's what's happening. They haven't defeated Goliath. They haven't defeated the Philistines. But this section we're in right now is like a summary of everything. So if you only read up to here, it would be enough. You'd know what happened for the rest of the book, or for the rest of the life of Samuel. Does that make sense? Any thoughts on this little section we went through?
I was just thinking about why Dickinson named his characters Ebenezer and Ichabod.
Yeah. Ebenezer Scrooge, stone of help. Is he described as being like stone?
Maybe, I guess, because he's like what?
Scrooge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a hard man with his nose to the grindstone.
Oh, there we are. There we are. Okay, I was like, what is the beginning of that? As solitary as an oyster. That's one of I don't know why I remember that bit, but that's stuck with me.
Okay.
Okay. Finish off the chapter then.
Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life, and he went on a circuit year by year to Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, and he judged Israel in all these places. Then he would return to Ramah, for his home was there, and there also he judged Israel, and he built there an altar to the Lord.
So he's going about. I like this aspect where he's a traveler. He's like bringing the justice from place to place, right? A mobile guy, but you could meet him at his home in Rama.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything else
On
to
horse.
add.
Do
What
you
was
think
that?
Gilgal is like Gilgamesh?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if there's a connection there.
Because that's how I was shorthanding it in my notes. Because I don't want to write his name over and over.
It is a bit of a name. Just call him Gil. Hey, Gil.
Gilga.
I'm going to have to look into this separately. I'll get back to you on what Gilgal is about.
Put it in the Blue Letter Bible and look it up. We want to know.
I'm so terrible about geography. I hate it. Okay. We're going to actually...
Were the other judges, did they do judging for the rest of their life? Where it seems like they would only come up for a specific thing and then kind of go away.
Well, in like the Book of Judges, I mean, I think that's just like, that was the exciting thing that happened in their life. And the rest of the time they were just arguing about goats that wandered into the wrong fields and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not against that as a possible interpretation. It's like he was a mighty warrior. Also, he really helped in disputing whose cow that belonged to. Okay, let's go into the next chapter because I think this is all one kind of section. So that's the end of section 1, and this is the beginning of the second section of 1 Samuel. Go ahead, Cassandra.
When Samuel became old, he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn son was Joel, and the name of his second, Abijah. They were judges in Beersheba. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice.
What does that remind us of?
Yeah. Repeat.
Isn't it interesting, too, that it's two? Well, okay, for those who don't know what we're referring to, Cassandra, what are we referring to?
Eli and his sons?
Eli and his sons, Hophni and Phinehas, right? Where they were bad. And that also connects with Aaron's sons who brought in the strange fire, right? We talked about that as well, where he's got 2 sons and they're both bad. What is interesting, I think, though, is that Samuel doesn't seem to be blamed for it. This repeatedly in Samuel, the children will sometimes turn away from the ways of the father. It's just repeatedly the children turning away from the way, or useless children, or people compromising because of their children. So
yeah, you know, it's interesting just thinking from like the, I guess, you know, the psychological aspect of it or whatever. Like, you know, Hannah's offering to give Samuel up was like this great deed or whatever, but you know, his dad just went along with it. His dad was a busy guy with another wife and other kids and all this, and then his, you know, essentially foster father was a bad father. So he learned, you know, what does he know about being a good dad, which is kind of the whole thing of this whole book too, with David too, you know, like essentially.
yeah,
Because David's like the forgotten son, and yeah, it's interesting. But it is interesting that he says that he made his sons judges, but it's not like that was a thing he had to do. It's not like a natural hereditary
right,
thing.
right.
Would his sons have become priests anyway?
No,
Yeah.
he wasn't a priest.
No, he was. He fulfills a role of priest. That's why he's able to be in the in the tabernacle.
But is he a Levite?
I don't know where it actually gives his genealogy. Chezi says that he is a Levite, but I don't know where in the text. It hasn't said that in the text, so I'm not sure.
I do
Adam
have
is saying
the book
yeah.
of all the genealogies of the Bible at home. I can look it up. It's a pretty cool book.
I know, I trust you. Adam says Samuel, by taking judge duty, refrained from having an active involvement, even if he knew the good, which allowed the bad to flourish in his sons. I wonder even about the fact that he's traveling all the time. He's constantly making the circuit, right? The cat's away kind of a thing.
Career oriented.
Yeah. And it's interesting because they're not functioning in any kind of priestly role the way that Samuel is, because Samuel is making altars and making offerings and all these things, but the kids are not priests, but it is saying that they took bribes and perverted justice. So within that role, it's kind of like the Hophni and Phineas version of if you were in the judging business as opposed to the priesthood business.
Yeah, it seems like it's harder to get the next generation to be like the initial one.
Yeah. How do you get them to be the same as where they came from? They didn't experience it. They didn't see it.
Because there's a lot of stories of like God chooses them or something and has like kind of contacted them, but then they're kids. It doesn't really say if there's anything like that, but they end up falling away.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they don't have that connection, that confrontation with God, like everyone else does in the story.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's continue.
Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "Behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations." But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." And Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them, according to all the deeds that they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are also doing to you. Now then, obey their voice, only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king."
Okay, let me just bring that up. I want to bring up another passage of scripture. So the people are upset, obviously. Cassandra, you said that you kind of laugh at how blunt the Bible is sometimes. An example of that for me is, "Behold, you are old." It's like, I just love that. "Behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Appoint us a king to judge us like all the other nations. The thing displeased us. Give us a king to judge us." Samuel prayed to Hashem, and Hashem said to Samuel, "Obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them." Okay. Did you guys grow up? I think a lot of evangelicals grew up being told that kingship was always a bad idea. Did you grow up with that as an idea?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was kind of implied.
Yeah.
And
never a good idea. God never wanted it.
And I think I had enough Calvinism to like avoid the whole thing of, look at all this stuff that happened in the Bible that God never wanted to happen. So I don't know if I don't think, like, I think constitutional republics are like kind of have some advantages over monarchies, but I don't think that I don't know. I don't think I know it. I know the thing you're talking about, the kind of teaching that you're talking about, but I didn't get too much of that. I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is a very interesting image because we discussed this before, that the ark is God's throne, is made to look like God's throne. So this idea that they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. So it's a rejection of God as king. And the last verse that I don't think you could read before. Actually,
No.
just read 8 to the end there.
According to all the deeds they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, from the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are also doing to you. Now then, obey their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them, and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them.
Yeah. So is Samuel at all to blame? It seems like he's not. And I honestly don't know why he is not blamed for his children. Because everyone else, in the way they compromise, in the way that their children make mistakes, the parents are blamed continually. Samuel is the only person where this isn't the case. And I don't get it. This is a bit that I don't understand. Joseph, if you watch this, please tell me.
Yeah, usually the parents, it's usually a no-brainer. It's like, if the kid is bad, if there's something wrong with them, it's always the parents' fault.
Yeah.
But I think also, too, from the perspective, maybe if you have kids and you're raising them in the world, it's not like you can, put them into like a little bubble and separate them from like everything else that's happening in the world. So I don't know if it would have been like, maybe it's not his fault because he's living in a place where there is a lot of idol worship and stuff like that is
Right.
drawing his sons away. It doesn't really say. So I guess this is just like conjecture.
Right. And this image of Adam is saying, is this telling us you don't have to be righteous to have a prayer answered? I would say yes, but it's almost like it can be bad when your prayers are answered. When God gives you what you want and what you want is bad. That's not good. But we just had Samuel say, come back, do something better. Like, move away from what you are being pulled between. Get rid of the idols. Follow God with your whole heart. What immediately happens after that is that then they're demanding a king. So it seems lined up that we're looking at these people that are being pulled back and forth. So it shouldn't be too surprising when they ask for something that's a bad thing to ask for. Ooh, we have an Antichrist conversation. In this way, was Saul perhaps a reflection of the end times Antichrist spoken of in the Christian revelations? It states in his first 3.5 years reign, he will be the leader chosen and loved by masses. I don't want to get into that because I don't know exactly how we are supposed to interpret the passages that are sometimes called the Antichrist passages. But this is a good example of someone. People will get killed because of Saul. It will go badly. And we're entering into this section where it's going to be bad. But at the very beginning of Saul's reign, he's a great king. He even destroys the serpent. And what I mean by he destroys the serpent is the first good kingly thing he does is he kills a guy named Snake. There's a guy named Snake that Saul kills. His name is Nahash. So when you're reading it in English, it says, now there was a man named Nahash. And you just keep reading. But in Hebrew, his name is Snake. Saul is the killer of the snake. but it turns pretty quickly.
It sounds like Saul had a short reign too, at least the way it's told.
Yeah. Is this a Tower of Babel episode in human form? I mean, maybe. That might be a really good way of talking about it. The people it's again them forcing, trying to make this work. And so there's going to be a collapse because of that. I think maybe, how much time do you have time if we continue?
Yeah, I have time.
Okay, cool. How about you out there in YouTube land? Do you have time? Okay. Then let's continue reading.
So Samuel told all of the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king from him. He said, "These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties, and some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest, and to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards and give them to his servants. He will take the tenth of your grain and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and to his servants. He will take your male servants and female servants and the best of your young men and your donkeys and put them to his work. He will take the tenth of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But the Lord will not answer you in that day."
Woo! What do you think about that, Cassandra?
Yeah, this feels pretty ANCAP. Like, but like, yeah, because like they already have to. It's like they're choosing a form. I don't know if they would say governments, but they're choosing something that will put a burden on them and on their families.
Right.
And then also maybe even invite. I mean, they already have a lot of wars, but there's something about a king too that he has to maintain military. And it seems like maybe would even invite more of that kind of like fighting and dying and all of that.
Well, and for some of them, even if they're not dying in battle, he's going to conscript them to be his servants and his slaves.
Yeah. So this is like the king's yoke would be much heavier than God's because he's asking for certain things, but it's not near to what the people would have to take on in order to have a king.
That's right. Okay, let me read a section. So this is from Deuteronomy chapter 17. Deuteronomy 17. Laws concerning Israel's kings. Okay, so this is from the book of Deuteronomy. When you come to the land that the Lord your God is giving you, and you possess it and dwell in it, and then say, "I will set a king over me, like all the nations that are around me." You may indeed set a king over you, whom the Lord your God will choose. One from among your brothers you shall set as king over you. You may not put a foreigner over you who is not your brother. Only he must not acquire many horses for himself, or cause the people to return to Egypt in order to acquire many horses. Since the Lord has said to you, "You shall never return that way again." And he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver and gold. This is a great passage. This passage, I think, is how you're supposed to interpret a lot of other passages. What's his name? Solomon, before he makes any other mistakes, he goes down to Egypt and gets a bunch of horses. So it seems directly being linked to this. He has the multiple wives, the issues that the multiple wives have. It says in this passage that we were talking about today, like all the nations that are around you. right? That they're demanding that same thing. It's a power of the world thing.
Instead of being set apart from the world.
That's right. And this secondary part is how they would be set apart. So I want you to read 18 to the end of this chapter. This to me is incredible. This is how Israel's king was going to distinguish himself.
And when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself in a book a copy of this law, approved by the Levitical priests. And it shall be with him, and he shall read in it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, by keeping all the words of this law and these statutes, and doing them, that his heart may not be lifted up above his brothers, and that he may not turn aside from the commandment, either to the right hand or to the left, so that he may continue long in his kingdom, and he and his children in Israel.
So the king was to, by hand, write a copy, make a copy of the book of Deuteronomy, and he would study that every single day of his kingship. It was to be approved by the Levitical priest that he did an accurate job copying it, and that would be his own he would have a study Bible that was his handwritten copy of Deuteronomy every single day, immersed in God's word. Like, think about that. Think about the level of devotion that God is requiring of his king. Can you imagine if Donald Trump made a copy of any book of the Bible to make sure he was held to that level of moral, that he had that level of morality, that he had that level of God's justice? Can you imagine anyone in power doing such a thing?
Yeah, that's quite a. I mean, that's a big standard. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting too. Not even just reading it, but he has to hand copy it, so he has to be in it that deep.
So deep that he's written every word out individually. That's one of the I know some actors, and sometimes when we're in a play, one of the ways that they memorize lines is by writing them out by hand. Because when you write it, it's really in your head in a way that it's not when you're just reading someone else's words. And can you imagine, you make a mistake? You gave it to the Levitical priest. He goes, you made a mistake in verse 24. Do the entire chapter again.
Yeah, that's a good humbling exercise thing too, because the king is not above everyone else. What did it say? Like, your heart shall not be lifted above your brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you also have those passages where, like in the Psalms, David talks about day and night I meditate on your law. Right? This is what we're talking about.
Right. Huh.
Yeah. So looks like Samuel is saying God will have to dwell in that king, and by descending, the burden on people will become too high. I'm not exactly sure what he means by that, but I remember when I don't know how I'm supposed to understand this. I remember when I was in Egypt, tied from the belly button and being drowned to death in amniotic fluid. What is happening? What is this? Do you understand this, Cassandra? Help me to understand.
I don't know. What were we?
I don't know when he made this
Drowned to
comment.
death in amniotic fluid.
I don't remember mentioning any of this. Okay, but so this is, you can see a prophetic warning in Deuteronomy about what the king will be like. And all of the kings will be held to this standard that they'll deliberately do it. And as best we know, besides that psalm from David, nobody's doing this. Hand copy.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in the way a kingship is kind of top down, because there's like, he has like power, authority, responsibility, and validation from God. But then because he has to go to the priests and stuff and have that authority over him,
Right.
and read it and study it too, like other people would have to do. There's also kind of maybe a more bottom up aspect to that.
That's right. Yeah, it's both. It needs to be both. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting image. And we're going to get to what happens when someone has failed. How do you undo that failure if you've anointed that person as king? Because David respects the office so much that David does not kill Saul even when he repeatedly has the ability to do it. He like leaves it to God's judgment. Okay, and let's finish up the this chapter going back to Samuel, shall we?
But the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, "No, but there shall be a king over us, that we may also be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles." And when Samuel had heard all the words of the people, he repeated them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Obey their voice and make them a king." Samuel then said to the men of Israel, "Go every man to his city."
Yeah. Look at this passage. He goes and tells them all to the Lord. What does this mean? What does this mean? He goes and just goes, okay, I know you know everything, but let me tell you what happened. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Jumping right from that passage in Deuteronomy, no, but there shall be a king over us that we may be like all the other nations, right? Like it's repeatedly stated in both passages. Sometimes if you take a Bible, like a class in university, they will refer to what follows Deuteronomy as the Deuteronomistic history. And this is why, because Deuteronomy is how you understand whether or not something is good or bad in the rest of the Old Testament. So that is the standard. That's how we're going to understand what's going on. And yeah, one of the worst things that can happen is that you get your prayers answered when your prayer is bad. That's what's happening.
Yeah, go out before and fight our battles. I wonder about that because do they really need a king? I mean, do they think they'll be more successful maybe with a king?
Yeah, give us a commander, give us well, and the guy they get is, it says he is from the shoulders, like no, everyone else comes up to the tallest guy you could find, come up to Saul's shoulder. He is a head taller than everyone else. He's a big dude. And especially when you're using a weapon like a spear, that means he has like an extra foot of distance. He can kill someone a foot sooner than anyone else. Big deal. That image, though, they want him to be a head, like a guy who's going to be at the head of our battles. But where does it say? He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots and be his horsemen to run before his chariots. So he's going to put you on the front line, and they think they're getting a king who will be on the front line. Right?
Yeah. It's kind of inviting a bureaucracy kind of too, because of all the stuff that a king needs or something, or the things that pop up around a king.
Yeah. He's going to become rich. He's going to enrich himself through the people, through taxes. This is the problem with what happens when you set up such a person. I think that's all. So that's basically where it ends. And then the next section, we're going to meet who would be king later on, who is Saul, who again begins good, but this is the setup. We know that we're getting into something terrible, and now we have to watch the terrible thing happen. Michael, do you have anything else to add?
He's been lost.
Yeah, lost in that spinning void. That's actually him just falling down a never-ending pit. Cassandra, any other thoughts?
No.
This is a great little chunk that we just covered. Okay, this Adam has clarified himself. I meant the rope of slaves pulling stones mimics the baby in the womb to the placenta. It's like history enacts birth of humanity as a collective soul. Wow. Okay. That is an interesting perspective. I also think that there's an image of, we talked about Hophni and Phineas have Egyptian names. And it seems like the image of the king becoming a slave master, that he's going to make you slaves again, is this idea of you're trying to defeat Egypt, but you're going like you want it the way that Egypt is, and what you're going to get is a pharaoh. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get a pharaoh who hardens his heart and won't listen to the voice of God, because that's what you asked for. Good luck, buddy. Good luck.
Yeah, because the king also kind of centralizes things.
Yeah. I think it was Adam who before said, yeah, is this a Tower of Babel episode in human form? That's a great way of describing what Saul is like.
Yeah. I mean, this Saul doesn't really start out, well, I guess maybe he's successful, but I mean, his introduction is kind of, it seems like there was a sign to the way that he was anointed that this was not going to go well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. That's the bit we're going to talk about next. He does have some early success, but there is a image all throughout the Bible of the failure of the first. Right? The firstborn son, like Ishmael is Abraham's firstborn son, not Ishmael, right? Same thing with Judah, same thing with like Judah's children, same thing. Like it repeatedly occurs where the second one is actually who the real success is. And we're going to see that even in the kings. The first one is a failure. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cassandra, for having the patience to listen to me prattle on after yesterday listening to me prattle on.
I mean, I like that. I like all the studies going on because I was watching Kale do his Heart of Darkness study too.
Oh, I haven't listened to that yet.
Yeah, it's a short book, so I've been reading that. I was trying to think of questions to ask because he's like, guys, you got to ask me questions. I'm talking to myself up here.
Have you seen Apocalypse Now? Did someone ask that question?
You know what? No. No, there haven't been many people asking questions. I think it's still kind of a small group.
I haven't listened to a bunch of Kale stuff. I've only heard him on other people's channels, but he's a smart guy. I should listen to it. And I like Heart of Darkness.
Yeah, he's done 2 streams so far on it.
Mm-hmm. So Apocalypse Now was a modernization kind of Heart of Darkness. They made it in the Philippines when there was actually civil war, and they used real government helicopters. So every now and then filming would have to be stopped. The helicopters would all leave, massacre a bunch of people, and then come back and they'd continue filming.
Oh my gosh.
The opening is them dropping napalm on this forest, right? You know how they did it? You know how they did those special effects? The Filipino government just dropped napalm on a whole bunch of forest. They just did it.
Oh my
They're
God.
like, who cares? In the movie, a cow gets slaughtered on screen. They just killed a cow. They just do it. It does not have, no animals were killed in the making of, because it just happened. One of the actors went on a cocaine bender and had a heart attack in the woods. There's just like so much horrifying things that happened that they made a documentary about the making of that movie.
Wow.
Marlon Brando was supposed to be, he's like he's the guy that they tracked down in Heart of Darkness, but he's supposed to be skin and bones, but he just kept on gaining weight. So they decided always to film him in shadow. He didn't have his lines memorized, so he would just babble on. So some of the monologues are just Marlon Brando just going on and on for no reason. But it's actually like, it will destroy you. It's like whoa, what did I just watch?
Wow. I had no idea. I mean, I always heard people talk about that movie. I guess that's why.
Some of it's so crazy. They're like, we need you to find this guy, and then you hit play. Like, I thought the movie was gonna ramp up to crazy, and it's crazy right out the gate. It's crazy right out the gate. I don't know if I recommend it, because it is. It'll break you, Cassandra. It will.
Yeah.
You're
I guess it makes sense in the Philippines too, because I don't think there's as much, I don't know, standards for certain things.
Yeah. The documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now is called Hearts of Darkness.
Mm.
And they're interviewing the filmmaker, and he just goes, "This is not a movie about Vietnam. The movie is Vietnam. We were too young, too crazy, too full of drugs, and we just all went insane in the jungle." And then it's like, then the movie begins. What am I watching? I'll leave it there. Enjoy your book clubs. Enjoy Jacob talking about wood grain or whatever that's happening at the same time. Okay. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye.